It's always a good idea to start your visit with a city tour with a local guide.
A very good morning, welcome to York, welcome to Viking Tours and our tour of the city. My name's Julie and our driver this morning is Jamie. If you look over to the right hand side there, you see a very handsome stone fronted building. That's known as the Guild Hall, dating back to the 15th century, which in actual fact brings me nicely onto the Minster, which stands directly in front of us there. We are in actual fact looking at the west end of the building. Now, its official title is the Metropolitical and Cathedral Church of St. Peter. We locals call the building the Minster. The name is quite correct. It comes from the old ministeria days, when the building was served by a team of clergy, as indeed it is today, and they were also responsible for training up the missionaries and sending them around the world to spread the word. It's also quite correct to call the building a cathedral, and in fact most of our visitors do ask us how they get to the cathedral, because the building has inside it a cathedra, which is the name given to the Archbishop's throne. The first building to be built on that site was in actual fact the Roman headquarters in AD 71, shortly after the death of Christ, of course. Christianity began to come into England just before the Romans left England to go back to their falling empire in 410 AD. But when the Romans left, the German rulers, the Anglo-Saxons, came to England, and they had pagan beliefs. No more so than the King of Northumbria, the name given to northern England from the River Humber upwards. His name was King Edwin, and he married a Christian from the south of England, and eventually his wife converted him to Christianity. And within 2 years of their marriage, he'd been baptised. For his baptism, he built a small wooden church on the site and dedicated it to St. Peter in the year 627. And that was the beginning of the Minster as we see it today. That wooden church was replaced with a stone church, which was destroyed by fire, and this went on 5 times until they began building the present building you see today. That building was started in the 1220s and took over 250 years to complete, which is hardly surprising when you look at the sheer detail of the building, and bear in mind they had no modern tools or machinery to actually use. It was all done by hand tools, levers and pulleys. The building is in fact the largest medieval Gothic cathedral in this country, and just to give you a rough idea of its size, it's approximately 520 feet long, 250 feet wide. At the widest point, it's built in the shape of a cross. The towers you see directly in front of us, well, they're almost 175 feet high, and the central tower stands at almost 200 feet high. And as we turn now, we're actually looking at the great west window there, quite often referred to as the heart of Yorkshire, because of the heart shape in the top of the stone tracery, said to represent the heart of Jesus Christ. If you look across to the central tower of the Minster, below the tower you'll see a stained glass window with 5 long sections of glass in it. That's across on the right. That window was named in the 19th century the Five Sisters window by the novelist Charles Dickens. It's the only window in the Minster that still contains the original Griselle glass, and that central section of glass inside that window is some 50 feet long. The stained glass window on the right-hand end of the Minster there, that in actual fact is the largest stained glass window in the world. Our stained glass window in actual fact contains over 100,000 pieces of stained glass, and if you took it out and laid it flat, it's the same size as Wimbledon's central tennis court.
Both inside and out, this largest Gothic cathedral north of the Alps is the most important sight to see while you're in York. Let's get back on the bus and continue our city tour.
Well, a very good morning to the two of you who've just joined us. Welcome aboard, welcome to Viking Tours. My name's Julie and our driver this morning is Jamie. The tickets you bought from Jamie allow you to get on and off these blue Viking Tour buses for the rest of the day. Well, we're now travelling down Gillergate, which takes its name from the now demolished church of St. Giles. Now, the street itself is fairly modern compared to a lot of the city of York, because in 1644 this street was completely destroyed. On the command of the Royalist armies who were inside the city of York, they ordered the complete destruction of the street, just so they could see more easily an attack from this direction. That particular piece of wall dates back to the Roman occupation of the city and the reign of the second Roman emperor to live and rule the empire from the city of York, Constantine Chlorus. The first Roman defences built around the Roman headquarters in AD 71 were in actual fact made of wood. They began building the walls out of stone in the 1st century, but this particular section dates back to the reign of Constantine Chlorus. He died here in the city in 306, and during his reign he actually strengthened, widened and heightened the walls. There is in actual fact about 12 foot of that wall still below today's ground level, which shows you how much the ground level has risen over the years. Now the walls you see around the city of York today aren't in actual fact Roman, they are medieval. 95% complete. The 5% that's missing would have actually gone across this square where we're standing now. Again, if you look across to your left-hand side there on top of the bank of grass, you can see where the city walls actually start up again. They would have come diagonally across this square, almost through the centre of the bus, and joined onto the gateway in front of us and to the right. The Normans were around from 1066 onwards, and the medieval period itself stretched from 1066 to 1485. So that's the period I'm referring to when I talk about the medieval period. During the medieval period, this gateway actually had a garrison of soldiers inside it, and they were there to give anyone who wished an armed guard out of the city of York. Anyone leaving York was entitled to this armed guard because the city itself was surrounded by a rather dense and dangerous forest, the Forest of Galtres, inhabited by many a wolf, vagabond and villain. I would imagine most people took advantage of the armed guard that was on offer. But this medieval gateway actually stands on the site of a gateway in and out of the Roman fortress and the Roman headquarters here. The Roman gateway faced north and Hadrian's Wall, and it's from this direction that the troublesome Scots would always attack the city. There are in actual fact 108 cities in England which have defensive walls around them. And out of those 108, York is the finest example. It's also the only section of city walls that are built on top of a bank of earth. 95% complete, our city's outer defences stretch for 2 3/4 miles. Originally built with a level top, the castellations that you see on the walls today were cut in by the Victorians, and the Victorians in actual fact cut in a lot of new gateways and added various towers just to make the walls look pretty. Coming up on our right hand side here, we've got the newest gateway into the city, known as Victoria Bar, which was cut out by the Victorians to relieve traffic congestion. But it's on the right hand side there we get the best idea of what the city walls must have looked like at their full height. The stone foundations go quite deep into the mound of earth, and where the cars are parked here, of course, there would have been the moat and where we're travelling. The construction we've got on our left-hand side is all that's left of York Castle. Now, the mound of earth upon which it stands is in actual fact the oldest aspect of the construction, constructed in 1069 by William the Conqueror's army. There was in actual fact a wooden tower or wooden castle built on the top of there originally, and that was destroyed during the rioting in York in the month of March and the year 1190. It was again rebuilt before the end of the year, but out of wood. It wasn't until 1245 that we had a stone castle on the site, and it's built in the shape of a quatrefoil. It's the only quatrefoil tower left standing in this country, built in the shape of a four-leaved clover. It has 3 corbel towers at the intersection of each curve, like the one we see exactly opposite, and on the front there, or the right as we face it, we have the gatehouse with a chapel in the section above. The tower itself originally had 2 floors and a roof, both of which were burnt out during a fire in 1684. But whatever the cause of the fire, it still remains that our tower has remained flawless and topless since 1684. This gateway is the gateway where we can see the damage that was done during the Siege of York in 1644. The gateway is known as a barbican, and in fact York's 5 original gateways would have all had barbicans on of some description. This one's the only one left in England now, and the idea of it was that any group of people wanting to enter into the city could be trapped inside there and interrogated as to their business in York. If it was ever discovered that enemies of the city were inside that gateway, chances are they'd never have got out alive. And one of the favourite methods of execution was to pour boiling oil on top of them. We'll see on our right-hand side Micklegate Bar, the busiest formerly of the original gateways. This gateway faced London and the south of England, and that's why it was so busy. And it carries the coat of arms of King Edward III. This gateway also has a rather gruesome past. It's from here that they used to display the majority of the heads of villains and traitors. The heads would be separated from the body either during execution or afterwards, boiled and pickled to preserve them, and put on the top of long poles known as pikes. And as we've got time, the traffic junction hasn't changed. If you look behind us there, you'll see the rather handsome black and white timber frame building. That's known locally as Herbert's House, again dating back to the 15th, 16th century. As we continue on, the church we have in front of us there, this is another building mentioned in the Domesday Book. Known as All Saints Church, originally it was in fact much larger, built in the shape of a cruciform or a cross. Most of the building that you see today dates back to the late 1300s, early 1400s, including the rather unusual octagonal-shaped tower on the top there. That tower was built so they could light a lantern in there to guide travellers approaching the city of York. And as we cross the River Ouse, we're crossing over Ouse Bridge. And we believe there's been a bridge here of some description since the late 8th, early 9th century, although we believe the Romans built the first bridge across the river further down to the right. Down on our left here we've got the River Foss again and the locks of the River Foss. The river in fact is navigable for a further mile within the city. And in fact one of our local businesses still has two 70-foot barges delivering newspaper print from the city of Goole. If you look down to the right here as we go around the corner, you'll see two arches in the city walls. Through the first one you can see the remains of York's first railway station, built in 1839, and when that station became too small, rather than make it bigger and knock the walls down, they built the one we have on our left here. This railway station on our left was completed in 1877 to the design of Thomas Prosser, and at the time of completion was actually the largest railway station in the world. Well, this is our railway station stop, and this is the best stop, of course, for anyone wanting the rail station, Rail Riders Model World, or the National Railway Museum.
Thank you.